Everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on the move, simple ways to accelerate your on-course sales. I'm Chris Cox, managing editor of Golf Business Magazine, and on behalf of the NGCOA, I want to thank you for your participation. Today's event will last approximately 45 minutes. It is being recorded. We will provide access to this and all presentation slides soon after it's concluded. We will also post this on our NGCOA members-only networking site, Accelerate. Now I'd like to introduce John Fito, who will present today's webinar. He's the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for 19th Hole Cart. It's an Arizona-based manufacturer of mobile refreshment centers. He has more than 11 years of experience in golf, and prior to joining 19th Hole Cart, served as the International Global Sales Manager for Textron. We are very excited to have him with us today and look forward to his insights. If during today's session you have a question, please type it into the message box located at the bottom left-hand side of your screen. To submit it, just press enter. John will field questions and answer them as time permits. And with that, I'll turn things over to John. John?
Thank you, Chris. You've got a pretty good radio voice there, by the way.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for joining this session this afternoon. We're going to run pretty fast. We're going to cover 60 minutes. I have to tell you up front that we've got Thomas and I are going to collaborate because he's going to advance slides for me. I'm in Arizona. I can't see the presentation, but we're going to figure this out. So you should be looking right now at simple ways to accelerate your Encore sales. 2 cold beer bottles should be up. Yes, Tom?
Correct.
Okay, let's roll here. We're going to be talking about ideas. And if you go to the next slide, here's my contact information. I welcome your calls. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see a handout, which I'm offering. If you'd like, I want you to take a couple of notes during this session. But we're going to go fast, and we're going to specifically cover 19 ideas. And if you'd like an old-fashioned hard copy brochure of this, I'd be happy to send you one. My email's at the bottom right there, jcito@rbw Companies. Just put 19 ideas in the subject, and I will be glad to send this to you if you send me your address. These 19 ideas, these are free, and they have very, very little investment. The point is, new equipment is nice, but what we want to do is use what we have better. So we don't need to buy new equipment necessarily. We need to just do a couple of things, 19 of them, better to get more revenue. Next slide. We're going to be looking at simple ways to accelerate Encore sales. We want to slow this process down, and we must look at 4 retail truths. We're going to get a little bit into the science of consumer behavior, one of my favorite topics, but before we just jump into the 19 ideas, we got to understand why these ideas work. And the challenge for you, I want to ask you to, when we go through these 19, choose 3. Choose 3 of the ones you like, you feel you can implement. I suggest you choose 2 easy ones and 1 very, very hard one. And I think the brochure is really going to help if you'll send me your email. Next slide, Tom. Revenue. It is about revenue, and revenue is a verb. And I thought this was a good way to start because, the origin of the word, it means to create a return, a repeat process, to come back. And that's exactly the action we need to create. We need people to come back and spend again. There's a very good basketball coach. Next slide. And John Wooden, quite good. He believed this. He believed it's the little details that are vital. Little things make big things happen. He was famous for taking excellent players and teaching them how to shoot a free throw. He was very good at teaching people who were very, very good in the game, teaching them how to run. We're going to slow the process down of what's happening on Encore sales, and we're going to cover some details. I'd like to show you how this all started, though. Next slide. And hospitality. I'd like to introduce you to David Anderson. This photograph was taken about 120 years ago. It was taken at St. Andrews on the old course, and David Anderson was a retired caddy who, after walking a lot and helping gentlemen golfers, he had this idea that he would offer some drinks on the course. This was cutting edge and very innovative. So his idea was he went to the keeper of the green, Tom Morris, and he asked if he could use one of his wheeled barrows. And the next slide, please. He set up this great looking stand. We don't know where it was exactly, but he referred to it as the 19th hole. And this is where the coin of the word begins. And as you can see, he's serving nice cold drinks. And the next slide shows, I think this is before pace of play was invented, where people are relaxing at the 19th hole, having a nice, a cool drink. His intent was to serve gentlemen golfers. And if we compare this slide to the next slide, obviously this slide is taken in 2017. The methods have changed. Card attendants don't have gray beards anymore. But the hospitality principle has not changed. This is a great comparison. Things have changed, but yet again, maybe not so much. What has changed, though? Next slide. Expectations. The expectations have changed dramatically, obviously. Derek Crawford, general manager at this club in Phoenix, where I am, I think he said it very well. He says, look, my owners expect me to generate revenue inside the clubhouse. He says, that's a given. He says, what I generate on the course, however, is the real extra. So his focus, and many others, is how to gain incremental revenue. And next, this metric, I really want to press this, and we'll be talking about this a lot, because as we talk about the 19 ways, and there's more ideas, in fact, but the metric we want to capture is the dollar revenue per round. This is really essential, and we're talking about the next slide. We're talking about the sum of food, beverage, and merchandising dollar revenue, divided by the rounds. Do you know what your average revenue per round is? And I'm isolating what's generated by the grill and the bar. I'm isolating strictly the bucks per round on the fairway, on the course. So, for example, if you had 4,000 rounds in a month and you had 60,000 of refresher revenue, that'd be $15 per round, right? And this is the great equalizer. This equalizes out people who have got discounted rounds, comp rounds, VIP rounds, tournament. This is the equalizer. We'll come back to this. All right. Next slide shows the 4 truths of retail. And retail, we're in the retail business. We just happen to have a golf course, but we are retailers. This is what we do. The whole thing is held up by these 4 pillars or principles. Empires have been built on mastering these 4. And when you see them, you're going to say, this is so simple. But we're going to use these 4 in the 19 ideas, and I think you'll find that's interesting. This really gets a lot into consumer behavior. Marketers don't really want us to be consciously aware of how these operate and how they work together, but we see it every day, at every gas station, at every department store, and every Starbucks we go to. So here we go. Number 1. Next slide. We buy what we see. We are hardwired to associate what we see with a selection. This is a picture of a consumer research, and this lovely young girl is being asked to choose the best orange. She has no instructions on what an orange is. Maybe she likes the taste, but she doesn't know what a best orange is. But she chose one, and so she's using some sophisticated behavior, which is not taught, but is built in. And marketers know that visual cues are going to cause a reaction or a purchasing decision. Next slide. Number 2, we like choice. We really like choice, and it's important because we associate choice with quality, and we Even though we go to a store, as an example, which has got aisles and aisles of things, and maybe we don't buy anything, but the impression we leave with is we say to ourselves, what a great store. It is wonderful. Those people are so nice. So we transfer a lot of positive emotions to a brand when we have choice. Very important. Next, this is even more important. We love new. We love new. And you're going to see this a lot in the 19 ideas. New creates the impulse. And we start to combine new with choice and vision, powerful things can happen. If you don't believe that new is really powerful, consider for a second the old and improved idea. And whether you are on a dating site or your business, no one wants to be associated or perceived as old and unimproved. Quite the opposite. It is new. And the last one, Tom, please, is service. We want service. We'll pay more for service, or at least even if we don't get this, if we don't ask for the service, we perceive positive attributes to the brand. This gives us satisfaction. I've got an asterisk on this because while we want service, especially in our business, we're in the hospitality retail business, we don't always get it, but we do want it. So next, here's all four. We buy what we see, we like choice, we love new, and we want service. And I would ask you to write these down. Just write down see, choice, new, and service. Because we're going to use these as we're going to look at a lot of photographs here of refreshers, some nice ones and not so nice ones, and we're going to talk about how these work. Consider this. We're going to slow this down a little bit, is that when we look at all four of these, if I were a card attendant and I said to you, may I show you our new choices of craft beer? Okay. Say that again. May I show you, let's see, our new choices of craft beer. That's a very nice sentence, isn't it? May I show you our new choices of craft beer? And most people will say, well, okay, but I'm combining all four of these in a sentence. So it's not just things we buy or do, but it's our vocabulary that is going to cause an increase in revenue per round. Here we go. Next one, Tom. So here's the 19 ways to boost revenue. Next one, please. Number one, you'll see in the top right there's a number and there's a circle with a number. And this is the reference to the 19. So the number one, in no particular order. I have some favorites, but we're starting with show, don't tell. Well, no kidding. That gets right into that one with the girl with the oranges, and we buy what we see. Do you remember the young girl? She had her little finger extended, and she was pointing at the good orange. What is this man doing? He's following the same behavior. So the idea is you show people the brands, you show, don't tell. Don't give me a verbal list of the brands. Show me what you've got. Next slide. A good example, I think, of showing and you're telling me too much or you're showing me nothing. What does this slide show you? This is is anyone ready for lunch? I mean, I don't. You're giving too much information, and there's nothing for me to buy there. All right, nothing interesting, nothing new. There's no choice. I'm getting negative information. Idea number two. Next slide is use the countertop. As simple as this may sound, this is really a big deal. And being able to stage the transaction and bundle by using the countertop creates some real dollar results. Next, there's a nice club in New Hampshire, and Bob says the following. He says, we've seen a big rise in revenue by about 30% just by using the countertop. And he likes it, and the members like it. The point is, he says, I've got the same members, I've got the same price, I have the same card attendant. And what I'm doing differently is, as this shows, I'm laying out the drinks and the bottles, I'm using the countertop. And he says, I've got a 30% bump in drink sales. And there's a couple of subtle things happening here. Back to the list. Do you see what is available? Do you see a choice? Perhaps you see something new, And on this image with this card attendant, you get the impression that there's some nice service being offered. So when you combine these four, in Bob's case, yeah, he's seeing a 30% bump with the same members and same prices. Next slide. What we're talking about is use the countertop, and obviously this is a case of this is a transactional situation. The attendant's going to finish pouring the drink and then hand it to the golfer, and it's over. It's over. There's no chance for bundling. Next slide shows, while the other one didn't have a countertop, this is also not a self-service operation. So the idea is that you may have a countertop, but the idea is you actually do need to use it. It's not a self-serve. You've got to get involved. And I hope maybe you're seeing some things you'll recognize in these photos. This happens all the time, and when you see these next, I think you'll maybe recognize clubs you've been with. The next slide, idea number 3, labels up. If you go to a grocery store tonight, there's a good chance you're going to see someone in the aisles twisting cans and getting that brand right up front. It's a big deal in retail label management. It's really serious. All kinds of consumer research shows that if you see the label, you're going to buy it. It's kind of obvious. But you need to see the brand. So on the left, you'll see as we go through these, on the left is like no brands, but on the right, back to the principle, show me the brands. Let me see the brands. It's really important. If you had a group of Russians come through and you were not able to communicate with them, and they didn't speak English and you didn't speak Russian, you should be able to do extremely well without language because you're showing the brands and they'll see what they like. What we say is really not that important. Next slide shows, labels up. This is a good example. It's an older refresher, doesn't matter. But the principle of you're looking at it and you're able to identify the brand you like. Next slide shows, not the case. Do you see any brands there? Apart from Powerade, which is not for sale. The box, this is the opposite of what we're talking about. Idea number 4, next one, Tom. Does anyone know, I wish we had a live audience because I'd like to ask, what are these two men doing? What are they doing? And they're not golfing. They're in a golf car, and they're, yes, but what they're doing, in my opinion, is they're looking for something to eat. Okay? And if you go to the next slide, my principle here for idea number 4 is eyes on the menu. We've got to get the menu and the brands in front of the buyers. Next slide shows, a view of nice course. A card is not out of the fairway, but we're going to be talking about this card holder in the top. Next slide shows 2 menus. This will be pretty familiar to you, I think. 2 examples. Nice, right? Nice. We got prices. We've got what we got for sale. But I don't see anything I want. I don't see, maybe I get the impression of choice. I certainly don't get the idea of new. The only thing I could possibly see is in the bottom right menu, which shows Michelob Ultra. Okay, not bad. But if we look at our business for a second, and we look at another business, which I think is, believe it or not, an excellent business, and it's the airline business. So what we do, we have one menu on a cart, and next slide shows, you should be looking at a Southwest airline menu card. The airlines do it the opposite that we do it. They put a card in every seat, and there's no menu on the trolley which comes down the middle of the aisle. So in this case, here's Southwest. This is brilliant. If anyone forgot what a gin tonic looks like, there's a picture for you to stare at, in your trip from Charleston to Chicago. They've spent millions with menu designers on this. And you'll notice on the left, this flight attendant holding the drink. This is a subliminal message of service, and you see choice and new. Do you see prices anywhere on this? No, it doesn't matter. That'll come later, and we're going to do something similar. So So the next slide shows, I think this is from Delta. They spend a lot of money on getting these good-looking pictures and text, all right? And yes, prices and things. What we're proposing is, next slide, look at this now. Good-looking bacon egg sandwich with a nice cold beer, and it gives a lot of information. And if you'll go to the next slide, please. Here's another example. Are you looking at the hot cold crunch slide, Tom?
Yes.
Okay. Without going back, does anyone remember how much that bacon sandwich and the cold beer was? Does anyone remember the price? If you're like a lot of the groups, only one of you may remember the price. Was it $11, $10, $14, $15? Most of us are looking at the sandwich. We're not looking at the price. So if we go to the next slide, I'm proposing that you want to follow the airline example and get a menu in every seat, a menu in front of all the eyeballs. And here's a suggestion that would be a card size and would fit into the cart. No prices, just the brands. And the next slide would show an example of, when you're sending the card out, you maybe someone would slip this card in with the golfers in their seat, and maybe say something like, by the way, we've got roast beef sliders today, special. You'll see Natasha. You'll meet her. She's our card attendant. You'll see her a couple of times, and have a great round. But put this card in. I can tell you that when you're like flying, when you stare at these brands and this cold beer and this bacon sandwich long enough, you'll want one. Consumer research supports this. It's human behavior. Next slide, number 5. Good food hot. On the left shows a perfectly good cold wrapped sandwich, but consumers today more and more want a choice of consider a hot sandwich, especially something that you're making yourself. Especially if you're making it yourself, and you can use words like local, we've got local grass-fed beef, and we've got our own bread. That really translates into higher margin, especially to the younger golfers. They want to know where their food is from, and they want to know who made it. Next slide shows clean. Clean sells. You'd say, well, of course it does, but I think if you could come with me and look at 10 courses, you may be a little disappointed at some of the cleanliness. There will be a time, I predict, you're seeing these ABC on the left, that you could see at some point that the mobile carts could be construed as food carts, and therefore will be rated as restaurants in terms of their cleanliness and their methodology of handling food. I welcome that day because clean definitely sells. If you look at the next slide showing the coffee pot, this was from a visit I had with a nice club, wonderful general manager. He said to me, he says, nobody wants to buy coffee. Coffee's dead. Nobody wants it. I offer it, and nobody wants any. And I think if you'll honestly look at that slide, I wouldn't want a cup from there either. I don't think you would either, at any price or free. So his conclusion was that coffee's dead, and we had a good discussion about hygiene. All right. Next slide is coffee. Speaking of coffee, let's brand that coffee. On the left shows us a nice cup with great coffee, I'm sure, but it's plain. It's got a plain sleeve, and the principle here, idea number 7, is brand the coffee. Everybody is branding coffee. Next slide shows whether you're at the Hilton or at a gas station or flying Delta Airlines, they're putting a lot of money. Well, not true. Actually, they're branding. It's very inexpensive to get sleeves with your club or the brand of coffee you're serving. And I would ask, this by the way, is one of your highest dollar margin products you're going to sell on the cart. And it's very easy when you brand it to brand your own house brew. I mean, it's as simple as buying fantastic beans at Costco and blending them with something else, and you brand it as Happy Dog Farm Blend or whatever. But it creates an identity into the brand. At the end of the presentation, we're going to be talking about image and brand. But this is one of the contributors to changing perception. And it also lets you raise the price by 50 cents or a buck. I mean, I don't need to explain that people want good coffee today, and they honestly expect it. But idea number 8, craft on draft. Of course, craft beer is hot, and the trend is hot, and it looks like the trend is here to stay. It's never been easier to dispense or give draft beer on a mobile basis with a craft keg. The next slide says yes, keg beer. It's not going to foam because of the nature of the way the keg is. There's a stainless steel straw which goes down the center and pulls off the bottom. So you can pour good keg beer, glass after glass on the course, running over all the curbs and tree roots you want. It's going to pour great. And again, this is back to the principle of new. It's back to the principle of choice. I mean, people certainly like that, but being able to offer something special for a tournament group or for Saturdays, this just helps with the brand and certainly boosts dollars. One of my favorites is next. Get really organized. Idea number 9. On the left, we're showing cardboard boxes, and what I'm saying is that, next slide, no boxes, no bags, no junk, nothing. You want to go to the container store. You want to get clear boxes that fit into the dry goods area and also maybe down below. And you want to be able to have the brands showing through. No boxes. If you look at the next slide with the green check mark, I trust, here's a nice refresher, 15 years old. Looks great. I see. What do you see? Do you see brands? Do you see new? Do you see choice? It's interesting, and they've done a great job of being organized. I think those are cupcake. Trays on the bottom, middle left, but they do a great job. And the idea is that this attendant's going to open the door and pull one of those out and put it on the countertop. You're not trying to see what's through the window. They're going to take it out and get it on the countertop. This is a nice job. The next slide. You've seen this one before, but do you see anything you want to buy? I can't see anything. And therefore, it pulls up, and again, another good conversation with the general manager, and they say, well, people aren't buying much. Yeah. How do you like that menu, by the way? Do you see the menu on the right there? Yeah, not helpful. So I'm advocating, get the menus off the cart, put them in front of everyone, and make sure I can see what you're trying to think I should sell. And you're going to use the countertop to bundle some things. So when I ask for a Bud Light, the cart attendant's going to put 2 cold ones on there and pull out some snacks. Yeah. Okay. Let's go in. One more. Next one, Tom, please. So here's a good effort, and getting organized. Definitely getting organized, but not quite capturing it. I don't think. Not quite getting there. Now, the next one shows. You should be looking at another red X. So here's a case of, it's organized, folks. Looks pretty tidy. We've got boxes. I don't see any brands. I don't see much for sale. But I've got 400 styrofoam cups ready. Okay. So while organized, it's not effective. This is the point of this photograph. Idea number 10, next. I want to talk about not just revenue, but I want to talk about pie. I want to talk about slices of pie. Because on the left, is a little range of margin, and it shows, we're talking about dollar margin, not percent. So dollar margin, this is the lowest margin products you're selling, and they're all beverages except for the Snicker bar. It's really, really low. So you're going to work hard to sell lots of water and lots of beer, and you're going to be happy, but you're not making much slice of the pie. In this case, we're talking margin. Next slide shows, take a big piece of pie, and I'm suggesting that you want a better mix of your products on the cart. This is not a mobile warehouse where you've got 400 cups. All right? This is a mobile retail store. And depending on who's golfing that particular day, you may put in some logo caps. You may, if it's amateur day, you may have more sleeves of balls than you would maybe carry. And if you're lucky enough to be in a resort place with lots of tourists, yes, you're going to offer logo caps, and you might have, especially if you're running company credit cards, you might have some nice logo shirts. Great margin is the point. Margin, because, next slide, it is about the margin. It's about the dollar margin. I get it, pace of play. You can't turn this into a 20-minute decision point. But you can plant the seed, you can pre-sell it, and have their size waiting for them at the club. That works. But especially hats, those are fast. Margin's great. You're going to sell a logo cap for $22, and you're going to buy it for $7 to $8. This is real good, and I'm pressing you to do this. If you could sell 2 caps a day, if you've got 50,000 rounds annually, and you're open almost 12 months, 2 caps a day is over 15,000. Over the year. That's good. That's very good. That's going to hit the revenue per round. We're about at the halfway point, so let's look at idea number 11. I hope this isn't painful, because cash is over. Cash is dead. We're one of the last industries that you'll need cash to go and have a drink. If you go on an airline, you can't buy a ticket in an airport with cash. You can't buy a drink on the plane with cash. You can't do anything in the airport, on an airplane, with cash. They don't take it. Next slide shows, there's so many great programs. Just compared to 5 years ago, there's some terrific platforms which will integrate into your enterprise system, your accounting system, and this will certainly help you identify or segregate your revenue on the course, but it has a real impact on dollars spent. No surprise, people spend more with credit cards than they do with cash. We've got to go cashless, folks. We've got to get there. And next slide. While it's great to take cash and give change and take a cash tip and everything, it slows the process down. And next slide, we've got a group of golfers who have a phone, and that's about it. And if we ever come up with driver's licenses that it can be used on the phone, the wallet's going to go next. And so they want to pay with this, So we've got to lose the cash. Separately, if you want to chat sometime about some platforms and things that I think have been pretty good, I'd be happy to. But this by itself, going cashless, could mean a 20-25% bump in your revenue per round, just going cashless. I have another favorite, number 12. Next, please, and that's attitude. We all know it's important, but this is so powerful. The slides on the left of our dedicated officers of the TSA. I hope you have no one at your course working in a similar way. They're doing their specific job, but their job is, you can't afford to have anyone with bad attitudes. You've got 2 choices, really. You've got people who create a good attitude, or they don't. And it's management's job to choose only one. There's a poet, Maya Angelou, I think she said it extremely well, is that she said, people will forget what you say, but they will never forget how you made them feel. That's what a good attitude does. It makes people feel good they came and spent 5 hours with you. Next slide shows, Topgolf. These guys are terrific, and this is a retail store with golf balls. We all know, for those of you who live or work in a Topgolf market, it's terrific, no doubt. It's a great experience, and it's friendly and lively. Do you know, next slide, they hire great attitudes. They don't hire experience. I listened to one of the senior managers of Topgolf talk at a seminar, and we wanted them to reveal all their secrets. They only revealed one or two. They prefer to hire people who have no serving or bartending experience. Chefs are different. They said, we want to hire great attitudes and happy people. We'll teach them how to serve and how to make a drink. And they're lining up. They're lining up for server jobs. That's what this photograph shows. They're recruiting, and they're hiring all the perky people, all the effective people with great attitudes, and they're lining up for server jobs. It's a fun place to work. Let's talk about the next one, number 13, gift cards. So important. Yes, if you were running if you were running credit cards, it'd be much easier to integrate gift cards. Could you be able to swipe it just like a credit card? So this is one that's dependent on moving out of cash. But gift cards are powerful because, as you'll see next, do you know that in retail stores, grocery stores, this is probably the most profitable square footage in the store. The massive and ever-growing display of gift cards. Oh, my goodness. But they love it because we buy them, but it's one of their most profitable square footages on the store, which is why they dedicated the end cap and the front-end merchandisers when you check out. That is extremely competitive real estate inside a store, and they dedicate it to that. Why? Next slide. There's lots of reasons, but the key ones are, and I think this is lowball. This comes straight from the gift card folks, but we know that half of all shoppers spend more than the card's value. Half. The average uplift is 133% over that. So, person gets a $100 card, they're going to spend on average $133 on average. Almost half, next point, is 40% of the gift recipients don't even use the full amount. So, oh my gosh, that means a $100 gift card and 40% of them are spending $70. Well, that $30 that's not spent, it belongs to you. It's free. And I think this one's low. The last bullet point there is that they say 35% of gift cards go unused. They indicate that it could be about half. Half of all gift cards used are still sitting upstairs in your drawer in the back, the ones you got 2 years ago. So a large percent are not even used. Gift cards are profitable, no doubt, especially now they're just putting in expirations. So if you look, next one please, at least if you're not going cashless yet and you don't have the integration of that, at least can we do this? Is that so when your guys show up and they lay down 100 or even a 50 for this transaction, for example. Next slide. Can your card attendant at least give change with a gift card? So if it's $100, you give them a $50 gift card at least. And so that part of that captures. It can only be spent in your club. It may or may not have an expiration. You know they're going to spend more than $50 because they're going to have several rounds of drinks or buy some apparel. So you know they're going to spend more, and you've just secured another $50 of revenue instead of giving change. So I'm asking, at least, can you make gift cards and give them in change once in a while? Next one. It's all about the tools. Tools, got to get the tools. And the reason is, next slide shows, this is about speed and professionalism. And do you remember in the beginning we talked about service and the perception of service, even though we all want it, we don't always get it. But when we do get it, consumer research shows that we attach more positive attributes to the brand. So I'm saying, get good tools. They're not many. This on the top right, if you don't recognize, that's a bar glove for twisting off all those craft beer bottles, if you're serving bottles. So you open lots of bottles during the day, and you just lost lots of meat in your palm. This protects it. Get a key opener on a retractor. Get nice looking tools for the card attendants. It's for speed and efficiency, but for professionalism. This next one might be my favorite. Next one, please, Tom. Who is that golfer? Now, let's stay on this one for a second. Does anyone recognize these two golfers? Have a close look, especially the guy on the left. That's an easy one. I don't know who they are, and that is the point. If we consider, next slide, I don't know who those golfers are, and if I were a card attendant, I'm suggesting that if you could discreetly, or maybe not discreetly, identify for me, the card attendant, who is that golfer? Are they playing a comp round? Is it a VIP? Maybe they're from the management company. Maybe it's someone who is on their 30th round, 30th visit. Maybe it's somebody who's visiting for the first time, or playing for the first time, I should say. Or maybe it's someone's birthday. But if I knew this, if I knew who that golfer was, I'm going to play the service card. If I knew who that golfer was, I could say something like, Tom, do I understand this is your first time to Happy Dog Farms? Thank you for coming. My name is Natasha. I'm the card attendant. Thank you for coming today. We really appreciate it. May I show you some of the cold drinks we got today? What did that cost? Nothing. So either discreetly or maybe not so discreetly, tell me, please, who is that golfer? That'll really help me. And especially if I know it's a comp round, my job is to get some of that money back. Okay? That's really important. Revenue per round. Next one shows, we're on idea number 16. Really simple. And this may not work for a lot of properties. I don't see private clubs necessarily doing this, but this works for you. Consider, brand the vehicle. Yeah, this shows product, but it could be as discreet, and I would definitely think you want to do this. It could be as discreet as a nice logo, a club logo on the card. We're going to be talking about image and brand, and we're going to be talking about the frequency in which your brand is reinforced during a visit. It's subliminal. No one would remember, but it's very, very important. We'll talk about why. So consider branding the effort. Number 17, frozen products. So easy to do. I live in Arizona, and although today's not too bad, it's gonna get bad. Or exciting. It's going to get 110, and it's going to get hot. And for those brave people who are playing discounted rounds, that 2:00 tee time at 110, they need frozen. They need frozen water, frozen drinks. They need popsicles, all of the above. The next slide shows frozen products. I love this because this is your future board of directors. These three kids. They approve of ice cream and frozen products, and it might just change their whole attitude about going to the club. Frozen products, so easy to do. We can talk about it offline if you want, but just using dry ice in a special container or not. But so easy to offer frozen products. New choice, right? Okay. Coming down to number 18. Time efficiency. We all know the top 3, 4, 5 complaints about golf, and one of them is I didn't get a drink, or I wasn't served frequently enough. And this talks about time efficiency, because if your card attendant is not hitting at least visiting 3 to 4 times per 18 holes, you're not hitting enough. You're not getting enough frequency. Revenue per round is a result of lots of things, but it is a result of frequency. It is not about the size of the cart. I've had many interesting discussions with general managers and some board folks who want the biggest refresher they've got. They want an aircraft carrier with 3,000 cans. And I'm not kidding. But that doesn't mean I can, as an individual golfer, I can't buy more than that. So it's not about frequency, or it's not about size, it's about frequency. So using time efficiently is really, really important. And this is a training issue. We want to serve professionally, and get back to the course and get them back to the game and go serve some more. We're on number 19. Train the drivers, as obvious as it sounds. I get calls on Mondays usually from superintendents asking for parts because of accidents which have occurred over the weekend, and it's sad, and hopefully no one gets hurt. And assuming that, training the drivers about driver safety for their own safety, but also you can't make any money if the cart is inoperable for a month. That's a disaster. And so the safety relates directly to, for the cart attendant's welfare, but this valuable rolling retail store. You can't afford to have it down for a week or two. Golfers would like it, but not good for you either. Those are the 19. We're going to segue now into something a little different. All right. So the next slide shows real change. And these next couple of slides we could talk about for quite a while, and we're not. We're just going to touch on it a little bit, because real change certainly include these 19, but we're now going to talk about image and brand. Next slide. Image and brand. These are different topics, but they work together. A brand certainly is reinforced by the image that's presented, but this directly impacts revenue. It's what we see. Back to that principle, the first one, the young lady choosing oranges. It's that simple. It's what we see. And the message we send must match the visual. The message we send must match the visual. Consider this. Have a look at this next slide. We have fresh corn today, picked today. Hey, this looks great. It looks fresh. It's genuine. It's friendly. It looks real to me. That corn, yeah, that looks like fresh corn. So the message matches the visual. You would agree, I think. Compare this to the next slide. How about this one? Well, what's the difference? They're both nice handmade signs. They're both genuine. But I think most of us would be more comfortable with the next slide showing dentistry. And the difference, what's the difference? Well, a lot of money, first of all, but we react. Here's the point. We react to what we see and the brand and the quality which we immediately associate with signs and what we believe to be true. And I'm going to this place with a beautiful office. That's where I'm going for my root canal. I'm not calling low-cost dental, and I think all of us would do the same. But there's no difference between these signs. They're both saying the same things, but the message is so different. So in our case, next slide, we look at our brand promise and we say, okay, and this is taken straight off of a couple of websites that say about us. This is it doesn't say brand promise, but I, as a reader, that's what I'm actually reading. About us. Well, who are we? Well, we're exclusive. We got a great pro shop. Special service. I've got a first-rate clubhouse. And it's superb, and I've got upscale food and beverage. Nice. Sounds great. And the difference between this brand promise and, next slide, in this next brand promise. This is the brand perceived. The words are the same. And there's a big problem if we get to a point of being perceived, even though we're thinking we're a gold frame, but actually people are perceiving us. This directly impacts revenue, loyalty, attitude. This is where things show up on Yelp that we don't like. And so the consistency of our message and the visuals, they've got to be aligned. Because the next slide shows, the dollar revenue per round. And these all work together. We've seen 4 retail truths which feed into and make these 19 ideas work. This metric of dollar revenue per round on the course is really vital. It is the small things that make a really, really big difference in how successful we are with revenue per round. Next slide. The details. The details are really vital. And when it works, it's a nice site. It makes it look easy, and the money flows, and you've got a good situation. Mastering the details are essential. So next slide, we're at the end. I would welcome to hear from you. I'd be happy to send you an old-fashioned booklet covering these 19 and some of these image ideas. I think it could be helpful. Send me a note at jcito@RBW Companies. And if you'd like to call me, the next slide shows my phone number and obviously my email. So I would very much like to hear from you if you have questions. And next slide is the last one. Thank you very much for listening on the simple ways to accelerate Encore sales.
Thanks for those insights, John. You certainly gave us quite a bit to absorb and hopefully some ideas for everyone to put to use at their course. Before we sign off, we want to check one more time to see if anyone has any questions. If you do, just type it into the box on the left side of your prompt. Going once, going twice. If there are no more questions, I'd just like to remind you that we will be providing access to this and all the slides now that it's complete. I know some of you are asking about that. It'll be on email, and we'll also post it on Accelerate. And while there, be sure to check out the archive of our other exclusive webinars and other educational offerings. So if there's no more questions, I'd like to once again thank John for his time, as well as all of you for taking time out of your schedules to join us. Until the next time, take care.